Welcome to the Choice Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Nastasha McKeon, founder and CEO of Choice Juicery, author of Plant Food is Medicine, and naturally a health, wellness, and mindfulness enthusiast. I believe that happiness is a choice, and I've built my company upon this ethos. This show is a platform where we will discuss all things health, wellness, and mindfulness in hopes of inspiring you further on your journey. We will be sharing inspiring stories, health, wellness, and mindfulness hacks, as well as anything else pertaining to living your best choice life. My hope is that you may hear something on every episode of this podcast that will genuinely be of value in your life. Welcome back to the Choice Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Nastasha McKeon, founder of Choice Juicery and author of Plant Food is Medicine. This episode, as well as every other episode, is sponsored by Choice Juicery. So if you want to support this podcast, and I hope you do, you can do so by visiting us online at choicejuicery.com and shopping our online store where we are shipping tons of amazing products throughout the nation. Speaking of those products, today I have a couple of them in here. If you haven't tried our Rehydrate Plus, it's an incredible hydration powder that we just launched. It's available online and in-store as well. And we are just now dropping our little mini packs as well. So get yourself some of those. This is true hydration, and it's all organic and it's all natural. So many bad hydration powders on the market. So do yourself a favor and get something good. Also, if you live in Southern California, we are local here in San Diego. We have multiple locations throughout the county. So please pop in there. I look forward to bumping into you in the stores. I'm always bouncing around. Today's guest, I am particularly excited about. This one is a long time coming. My dear friend, Cinderella de Groot. We've been friends for several years, and we've been talking about getting her on the podcast for quite a while now. I'm going to just introduce you to her. She is a somatic transformational facilitator. She's a mother of two and the founder of Divine Light Collective. She supports women navigating heartbreak, separation, and divorce, helping them regulate their nervous systems and rebuild their lives and identities with emotional clarity and embodied self-trust. Her work bridges science and spirit, integrating brain-body communication, neural rewiring, cognitive reframing, and polyvagal-informed somatic practices, alongside intuition, breath work, sound healing, and trauma-aware coaching. Through her signature Sacred Rebuild method, guides women through the in-between, the space where a chapter has ended and a new one is taking shape. Something with which her and I both have lots of experience with. Cinderella is just an example of resilience, rebuilding after loss, and empowering other women. And I'm just so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Excited.
Long overdue.
Wow, is it?
Yes.
We had this idea since 2 years now.
Yeah, well, before you moved back to Amsterdam, and then of course you moved back again. I think we were trying to line it up before you even left, and then here we are now, a couple years later. So I'm so excited that you're here today. Not because we don't hang out all the time and talk. It's just two busy single mamas, running businesses and raising babies on our own. So yeah, well, I'm happy we're finally doing this. There's so many directions that I want to take this conversation. Obviously, I want to talk about your story. Because I think your story is very inspirational, and I want to talk about your work and what you do and how you help women with all the modalities that you offer, which are many. And if we have time, I'd even love to dabble a little bit in the plant medicine conversation if time allows, just because I think it's a fun one that you and I connect on a bit as well. Let's start by just where are you from? And let's introduce you to my audience. Tell us about where you're from, how you ended up back here multiple times in sunny San Diego.
Oh my gosh, that's a story. In a nutshell, when I was 28 years old, I left the Netherlands with a one-way ticket to travel around the world. And I did many travels for 3 months, 6 months on end with a backpack, hitchhiking around the world, very adventurous. But when I was 28, I was like, well, let's see what life brings. The Netherlands was too small for me. I couldn't really see myself living there and growing old. So I left. I have been for 2 years traveling around the world, lived in Australia, Fiji, Dominican Republic, Costa Rica. I visited San Diego, actually, at that time as well. And then when I was 30, so 2 years into my world travel, I met the father of my children, and I followed him to Puerto Rico, where he lived. And back there, I lived on and off, traveled back and forth to the Netherlands, lived in Dominican Republic again, went through the whole visa process, which Yeah, which is, a thing. But eventually I became a citizen, and, we were building happily ever after life, so to say.
Right.
Yeah, that fits my Cinderella story, but
Yes, it does.
but it got a twist in the end.
It's the name of the book. We'll have to talk about that as well.
Yes, 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 absolutely. So in 2017, you might remember that there were the hurricanes that hit the Caribbean area, right?
I do remember.
Destroyed everything, yes. And so we had built a small tourism company. It was running really nicely. We had a lot of freedom. I worked from home, was successful. But that one night to the other, that was, shut down. There was no business in Puerto Rico anymore.
Wow.
So you had the Hurricane Irma, and then 2
Mhm.
weeks later, Maria. In between, unfortunately, my father was admitted in the hospital with a heart attack back in the Netherlands. Couldn't visit him. So that was when life got really, I would say, intense. My relationship was already a little wobbly throughout the years, but I was really going after this big dream of living on a tropical island
Right.
with a beautiful surfer dude and having this amazing, small business.
Right.
But it was difficult. The relationship was toxic now that I have studied and grow so much looking back at that. Anyhow, everything came to a hard full stop when the hurricanes hit and we had to relocate. So we moved to Oceanside. Just a random pick.
Wow.
Because of the father of my kids, he said, I love surfing. I've been there before. Let's just go there.
And you'd been to San Diego before as well.
Yes.
But not together.
No.
Wow.
No. So I had a 1-year-old at the time, and everything was destroyed. We lost all our belongings. I arrived here with probably just 2 suitcases of clothes, and we had to start life from scratch. So we have been couch surfing,
Wow.
several months in different people's places that he knew. And I'm like, what should I do now? And so I started to study something you call behavioral technician, working with kids with autism.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. He went back in construction. We did some side gigs, went back into teaching dance, and life moved on. So then, from 2017 up to 2019, COVID hit.
That's right.
Yes. So we built up our life from scratch. That things, would slow down,
Yeah.
balance itself
Of course.
out. And we were building this new life here. And then COVID hit, and that was very hard. I lost a lot of the contracts. I was working,
Of course.
for many institutions and schools. Gosh, this is a second rebuild forced upon me.
Of course. Literally by forces of nature or, a pandemic, a global pandemic, these things are completely out of your control, kind of forcing you to go back to square one again and now again.
Yes, and that was not the last time.
I know.
Yes, because after that, I pivoted into wellness. I figured, okay, we can't do the in-person
Right.
teaching anymore. So I had to be creative. And as creative as I am, I was like, I'm pulling out my Reiki and pranic healing certifications out of my drawer.
Yeah.
And let's just start pursuing that, because people need wellness. People need
Right.
healing. Like, the world was going mad.
And we kind of skipped over that a little bit, but you kind of come from a generation of healers, where you're from. Your mom's also
Yes.
in the healing space and quite a gifted healer. So that was kind of inherently in you.
Yes, yes. I grew up when I was very young with my mom saging the house, burning Palo Santo,
Yes.
pulling her cards. When I became a teenager, my hormones were all over the place and I was doing things that were, not the best choices. And so I would come home, being emotionally all over the place. And she would be like, come lay on the table, the treatment table. And she would balance out my chakras. And yeah.
So this is something you were just born into.
Yes,
I love
yes.
that.
But I never saw myself as becoming a healer in a sense of turning it into my profession.
Right.
I was like, oh, that's my mom.
Yeah,
Like, not
exactly.
me. I'm the
Yes.
dancer. I have a professional dance background.
Yes,
So
that's right. We glassed over that, but yeah.
yes, professional dance background. Love that. So, I mean, dancing and healing, that seemed like worlds apart. I was in the showbiz.
Two different worlds.
Yes, absolutely. But I was interested in it and I did do some certifications. I just, put it in a drawer and away until COVID hit. That was the moment I'm like, my dancing era is over. The tourism business is closed down. this is for me the time to pivot. And so I started to create coaching programs
Mm-hmm.
and offer healing sessions. And that was wonderful. That was a great time to be of service like
Mm-hmm.
that in the COVID pandemic time.
And I think that's kind of how we connected a few years ago. Initially, before the final rebuild,
Yes.
you had a pretty successful business where you were doing all kinds of healing work and you were leading women's circles. And
Yeah.
I was invited to one of the women's circles and was like, "Wow, this!" I've been to a lot of things like that, but I was like, "This woman is legitimate," and we really connected there in that space. So
Yes.
I saw you at the height of it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Because what we missed, because so many things happen in my life, we kind of go back and forth on these
Yes. Right.
timelines. So after the crash of the hurricanes, we arrived here, but then 1.5 years later, and another child later,
Yeah.
I divorced.
Right.
So that was actually my second rebuild
Okay.
into, oh gosh, I'm still not financially stable. I
Mhm.
don't have family in the States.
Right.
I just came from this destruction on this island, and now I choose to divorce. But that was my personal decision. I did that. I took the leap and I enjoyed that. I really found myself again. I found my voice, my passion. And that's when I started to teach dance again. But then the pandemic hit.
Okay.
So we got it
All
on the
right. Yeah. All
timeline.
right.
Yes,
Yes.
a
We're getting
lot.
there. We're getting there.
We're getting there. Yes. So that came to a full stop because
Mhm.
of the pandemic. Then I switched into wellness. Was a few years single. Was great. I was exploring myself, thinking I was completely healed.
Yeah. As we
Mm.
do. I've been there.
Yes, like, we got this under control. Nothing is wrong with us anymore.
Yes.
But then life gave its biggest challenge, which
Mhm.
was a new partner that I dove into this relationship with him very fast. And very fast, luckily, I escaped.
Yes. I wonder if part of that too is like, you're here with no family, no support system. And even though you were thriving, you're raising your kids, you're making it here in San Diego in a place that's not the easiest place to make it, especially when you're not from here and you don't have a support system. And here you were making it, but then this person comes along and they say all the right things and do all the right things. And you want to believe all of that, even though it's fast and furious, because to some degree, it's like, it's so nice to have family. It's so nice to have
Yes.
like someone to build that foundation with. So I can understand why that happens.
Yeah, you move a little faster, I
Yeah.
think, when there's not a real solid foundation in a way.
Yeah.
Then that person quickly becomes your safety net. And yeah, I moved fast, absolutely. But things came crashing down really fast as well when I did discover a lot of betrayal, hidden addictions, lying, so much yucky stuff.
And I want to just pause on that there because I've been guilty of like rushing into relationships. And while that's not the focus of this conversation, it's like I've been guilty of rushing into things. And then, of course, sometimes that works out. Sometimes people get lucky, they rush in and then it's like that was an ideal partner. But oftentimes when we rush into things, we uncover, we fell in love before we got to know the person, right?
Yeah.
And then we uncover all these things about the person that we didn't necessarily know we were signing up for all that because we didn't really have the chance or the time to really get to know who that person really was. We took them at their word, face value and believed what they said. And then you kind of fall in love with an idea of a person only later to find out that they're not at all who you thought that they were. And so I think it's so important to just take time in getting to know somebody, which now we've both learned
Yeah,
through
absolutely.
experience by, you learn what not to do by, sometimes doing the
Yeah.
wrong thing. Or not that it's wrong, because it's all a beautiful lesson.
Yeah.
In the end, you get so much out of it. But yeah, just something to gain out of that experience for anyone who's listening is like when things feel rushed, oftentimes, it's a good idea to like take a pause. It doesn't mean you have to stop, but just like slow down,
Yeah.
focus on really getting to know somebody, which takes time.
Absolutely. And we think we can learn and read everything in the books and
Yeah.
heal ourselves through the self-help books. Yes, in a way it is, but the real tests is when life puts you in situations and introduces you to people that actually uncover these the wounds that are
Yeah.
still there and the patterns and the programming that you can only discover in real life. And so for me, this was really a huge turnaround into the depth of my inner work that I had to do. And I figured out, oh my gosh, there's still work to do. But the funny thing is that I was very much focused always on the spiritual aspect, healing on an energetical level, but I never really included the science, the neuroscience, and how our brain really functions and our nervous system. And 2 years ago, I started to study that. And that's where everything kind of clicked. And it's really speed up my healing journey,
Of
so to
course.
say. I do not repeat
Yes.
the same patterns.
Yes. Going back to your story in the timeline, because then, you got out of that really quickly, thank goodness. But then, you found yourself like, you had built that, you started to build that business with that person. You brought them into your life, brought them into everything. You bought a home, you did all these things together. And then when all that ended, you had to sell the home, you had to separate the business. And then you found yourself again kind of alone in this foreign land, if you will, away from family and friends, and not all friends. I like to think you had good friends, but without really like a deep network of people. And so you ended up moving home for a while.
Yes.
You went back to the Netherlands. You were there for
8 months.
8 months. I was gonna say, it wasn't even a year. I think your plan was for it to be, but I think your first winter, you were like, no, I'm coming back. You actually told me, I remember you telling me, you're like, I'm going to be back in April. And I was like, I don't know how that's going to be possible. Like, how is she going to do that? But I mean, man, never, ever underestimate Cinderella is what I learned. Like, she said she's going to do something. By golly, she's going to do it. And you did.
Yes. I have a way, I would say, a power of manifesting. And sometimes I burn myself with these things. I go a little too fast and a little too hard. But this one was basically a forced one in a way, because right there and then, for the third time now, fourth time, it was the hurricanes, it was a divorce, then COVID, and now this relationship. Gosh, 4 times in a few years only. I was empty-handed. Yes, I invested my savings account in the renovations in the house, you name it. We merged my business that I built with him, and my focus was on him, and there I was. Yes, I had nothing. No, literally nothing. I was back in the Netherlands riding on my cargo bike. I exchanged my Mercedes for a bicycle in sunny California for the cold and the rainy days.
I will say, though, it's so cool there that like you can get almost anywhere you need to on a bicycle. That was a new, I got to go visit her there. I brought my daughter and went to visit her there and got to stay in her home there. And then we went together to Spain and Paris, and we had a magical little adventure while you were there. And I don't regret that part of your journey, of your Cinderella story. But yeah, it's interesting what a different life it is there. How you can totally live without a vehicle. You can just bike everywhere. You can walk across the street to the grocery store, and it's like everything is right there. It was pretty cool.
That was for me one of the biggest adaptations I needed to, make, coming from Europe.
Yes.
America, everything is drive-through and in the car. Quickly I gained some pounds.
You're not going to ride a bicycle around here.
Oh, well, on the Sunday fun day they do that.
Yes.
But for us,
not like commuting.
we just commute, rain, storm, ice, we go on that bicycle.
Wow.
But yes, how that happened was actually I lost everything. And then at the same time, the father of my children, who I always co-parented with here, also decided to leave the US. And I'm like, wow, everything collapses at once. When it happens, it all happens at once. And so my vacation that I had planned in the Netherlands turned out to be, a many months stay. I shipped everything over, not knowing what my next step would be, but I needed to calm my nervous system. I needed to find safety in this storm that was happening, and needed to, have a good look at the finances and how am I going to pull this off as a single mom full time now, living in San Diego area. So I took a time out, so to say.
Yeah.
And my kids went to school there, and I got to show them my home country for a bit. But then after 8 months, I'm like, no, I'm missing Cali. I'm coming back. However I'm going to do it, I don't know yet exactly, but I'm going back. So
hard to beat this. It's like 70 something degrees today and sunny, and
in
January.
January.
Like the last week of January. So yeah, it's a little hard to beat.
I know. Yes, back I am. And again, I rebuild it. I had to look at what is left of my organization and what do I need to add on to make it a sustainable living. And my own healing journey has definitely influenced, what it is today.
Yeah.
And what type of women I serve, how I serve them. And it's beautiful. I live every day still with passion and purpose. Not always easy, but when there is passion and purpose, there is no way to give up, so to say.
I love that so much. It's interesting because I feel like so many people would stay because they don't know what else to do.
Yes.
And I see that a lot. I see a lot of people that stay. And it's interesting too. I think people celebrate long-term relationships, whether they're happy or not. It's like, it
Yeah.
seems like you're successful. Oh, you've been married 20 years. Congratulations. It's like, well, have you been happy for 20 years?
Yeah.
What are the inner workings there? Because I don't think longevity means success in a relationship. I think sometimes it is successful to leave a bad relationship
Yeah.
if there is, major, issues like in your situation, lying, cheating, like, addiction, things that were not a safe space for you.
Yeah.
And to choose to leave that, and at the same time leaving that knowing, okay, that means burning everything to the ground again and having to start all over again. But to have the faith in yourself, that you're going to land on your feet again, but you're going to refuse to stay in a situation that does not align with your values. I just commend that so much, because so many people will stay out of fear of
Yeah.
like the unknown of the future. How will I make it? Where will I go? How will I live? And I don't think that's a reason to stay in a relationship.
No, but that's living from fear.
Yes.
And that's something that I've always refused to do. So many people stay, as you say, way overdue, and only because the societal norms,
Yeah, of course.
because how people look at them,
Mhm.
because how they think their life should look like. No, I live from truth, and I really motivate anyone in life to do that. And if that means that you need to give up a whole lot, do it.
Yeah, I love that.
If your heart is asking for that, yeah, you have to go through some storms, but you will always do it from a place of authenticity, of truth, and you will always come out stronger. And it's sad. It's sad to see people fearing change so much, because change is growth.
Is 100%.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. And having a growth mindset means you will never get stuck. You will always transition and transform. Very, very important.
Absolutely. Okay, tell me about this like polyvagal stuff. Tell me about your methods that you've created. Obviously, some of that was what you learned that helped you navigate through those really difficult times, and I guess stabilizing your nervous system and getting yourself, because it's really hard to create and be creative and think about the future that you want to have when your nervous system is out of whack. So things that people can do, what are the tools that you use that you're now using with your clients that helped you to calm and stabilize your nervous system to kind of start that rebuild?
Yeah. Well, I'm super glad that the nervous system terms become more known.
Yes, that was common. Yeah.
Yeah, more common. Yeah. People start to awaken to that. And polyvagal is still quite new. Not a lot of people have heard of that word, but it's a nervous system based approach to get out of survival into safety and connection and regulation. And from that place, we can heal and we can manifest our lives.
Yeah.
So I was doing all the polyvagal things already for years. I just didn't know it was polyvagal until I got certified in polyvagal therapy. So what it is, it's, for example, body awareness, breath work, visualization, meditation.
Okay.
These are the most common things. So really working through the body, what do I feel? And regulating that, going back to a place of safety. Once you find that within, you can take on so much more in the world. You can handle stress, doesn't get locked into the body. Trauma, you know how to navigate that much easier. And again, so it doesn't get locked into the body. So it's a very beautiful approach of different modalities that, especially here where we live, it's full of, but it's used in a therapy setting. Okay. So that's what I do.
So what does that look like if someone were to come in to get some polyvagal therapy with you? Like, for example, if I were to get a session with you, what would that look like? Walk us through that.
Yes. So there are different ways of doing sessions. One is online, just on a Zoom. We would be diving into several steps, though. It's all very much, help me out
specific to the client and the client's needs, I imagine. Yeah.
Yes.
It's like tailored to, so you probably get to know them a bit and learn what their needs are. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
It's based on their trauma and what have you. That makes a lot of sense.
All that.
But I guess I wonder, like, when you talk about like dance being a part of it, how does that come up? I know when we've done some workshops together, one of the things you have us do is you have us like get moving and like there was a time when that was terrifying to me, like the thought of like having to like dance in front of people.
Now you're a showgirl.
Now, oh yeah, I know, right? But there was a time, but that came for me through, and I didn't know this was part of polyvagal therapy. I didn't know that, like you said, a lot of the things that we do were a part of it all along. But I went to it was two things in one day. I was at a retreat, and one of the things they had us do was a tantric breathwork workshop. And I thought like, oh, I'll go. I'm curious to hear about this. I'm gonna throw myself under the bus here, but I always kind of judge people with the tantra stuff. I was like, that stuff is weird. I'm not into that. Like whatever that is, I don't want anything to do with it. I've heard I guess there's that covers a broad group of individuals and styles of breathing, but this specific one, I thought, okay, like I'm sure it's gonna be fine. So I went, and when they showed us what the breath work was going to look like, I almost like hightailed it out of there. I was like, there's no way I'm doing that in front of people. There's no way I'm going to breathe like that. But I did. I stayed and put myself in what was an uncomfortable situation for me. And I did this breathing, and something in me during that session, like it unlocked something in me, that movement and that freedom and that releasing of whatever it was that would have prevented me from being able to do that in front of people in the past. And then that night, I went to my very first ecstatic dance ceremony. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm like, this is not the stuff that I'm into. This isn't the stuff that I do. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this. But I went again, pushed through my discomfort, and they walked us through this like ecstatic dance ceremony. And in that movement and that freeing movement, it's not like I'm not like dancing to look cool, or I'm not dancing to choreography. Yeah. It was like just that freedom of like just moving my body. And I remember having done that in different things. Sometimes they have you move your body when you go to a breathwork workshop, or you go to a yoga, and they'll say shake your body, whatever. And I always felt so awkward doing it. Mm-hmm. But then after those two things back to back, I was like, now I think I went to something that you taught, and you had us do a little bit of movement beforehand. And I was like, oh yeah, I know what this is. I got this. Okay. Now I feel comfortable doing it. But there's something to that moving and that shaking and that releasing.
Absolutely.
And I'm imagining, is that part
of it? Yes. Okay. Yes. The body keeps score. The body holds on. The nervous system has a memory, so to say. And a lot of times we operate day to day from our logic, conscious mind, go, go, go. But if we learn to listen to our body, it gives cues on if we are in a state of sympathetic or parasympathetic. Are we in overwhelm, anxiety? Where does that live in the body? So instead of only trying from willpower and from understanding things to create change, which I believe is not only possible from that, I incorporate the body, and then the brain and the body can work together and then achieve change. However that looks like, right? That's why it's somatic transformational facilitation. Some are burned out, tense, stuck, disconnected from their own true self. And gosh, one of the biggest transitions in life is divorce, separation, heartbreak. Mm-hmm. So I focus on that because that's just what I'm very passionate about. Yeah. So going back to when you ask me, how does a session look like? Well, the Sacred Rebuild has different ways of working with people. So one is online, and then we dive much more into the neuropsychology aspect. We're utilizing, or I say we, but it's actually me. Funny. I'm utilizing schema therapy, cognitive reframing, looking at the timeline when things happened, looking at the phases of grief. So we're really diving into a session where it's much more talking. Yeah. Yes. But there's always moments that I will guide you back to your body. Where do you feel that right now? And with certain neuro rewiring exercises, visualization that I guide, we can override the old programming that is happening in the brain to the body. So it's rewiring the brain to body feedback loop, so to say. Yeah.
I love that.
But that will be the online sessions. Of course, in person, then I guide the people through breath work, utilizing different instruments, the sound bowl. I have a whole beautiful sound bowl set, shamanic drum, rattles, voice, Reiki energy healing. So then we're working on a very different layer.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've done those sessions with you.
Yes.
Very powerful, I might add.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I love these sessions to do that one-on-one in person. And I also offer the group sessions, the group breathwork. You and I have one coming up.
Right, we sure do.
Yes.
What's the date on that?
The 6th of September. No, that's February.
February, that's
next
correct.
week.
Yes, it's next week. Hopefully this comes out before then, and you can still grab a ticket if there's any available.
I know. Yes, breath work that we're doing, such an event, super powerful. What else? A femme flow dance. That is a dance workshop that I organized to get in touch with our authentic feminine energy
I love
field,
that.
utilizing Latin dance, tribal, Afro. What else do I have there on store? Sometimes it's circles, women's circles, or retreats as well. Yes, and then we have the psychedelic support as well.
You
I
do.
offer.
And I want to talk about that before we dive into the psychedelic part of the conversation, and I'll be mindful of our time because I know you and I both have school pickups today. But before we dive into that part of the conversation, I want to just go back to, because I feel like we just, again, kind of glazed over it, but the fact that you work with specifically women. You also work with men too, but you are really focused right now on women who are rebuilding their life after a heartbreak or a relationship ending, something along those lines. And I don't think that we give heartbreak enough credit. To me, I've been through a lot of heartbreak, and I've also been through a lot of like I've had a lot of death in my life, in my family. And I would say that heartbreak can be right up there with losing someone to death. It is a death of a sort. And I always feel bad saying that because I don't want to discredit people's experiences when they're going through like the loss through death. But I've been through both. And I can honestly say when you lose a partner that you thought you would spend the rest of your life with, that you love deeply, it feels like you're dying. It feels like a death. And it truly is. And it's a very lonely road to navigate. I feel like there's so much grief counseling available and grief therapy and all these things for people that are going through the loss of a loved one, but not as much is out there for people going through navigating the grief and the necessary like rebuilding your life after the loss of a relationship. Identity, very much so.
Absolutely.
And there's such a need for it. It's such a challenging experience. I've been through it myself. I've been through it, a couple of times now as well, where I've lost somebody who I love dearly and went through that heartbreak and the pain and the, that separation and literally it was like in my body. And it's like, of course you can mental it, you can read the books and you can, get the talk therapy and all those things, but they can only take you so far when it's in the nervous system. And so I think that's where your work comes and so clutch for people that are navigating those difficult times. And you also can become blocked off. And that's one thing I want to talk about a tiny bit, because I was super closed off that's not what you focus on work-wise, but I love telling people this story because it's not like the intent of your work. But for me, I was really blocked off, and people would always be surprised. They'd be like, you must get hit on all the time. And I'm like, I actually never get hit on. And I used to say that because it was so rare that anyone ever hit on me, in person. I think obviously I'm always, with my kids, or I'm at work and have employees around me, I have people around me, but like it was really rare that people ever hit on me in any kind of a social setting. And I always thought that was like interesting, and I did some work with you. And I always say like Pandora's box opened up because it was like wild. We had a very powerful session.
Yes.
I mean, I like purged in the session, which is wild. It was a wild, intense session.
Don't scare anyone.
Not a bad way, not in a bad way, but it was just, I guess it wasn't what I was expecting, but I had a lot to release. It's relative to like what's going on. And I think there was a lot going on in there. A lot of like fear and trauma was stored in the body, and a lot of that was released, and something in me opened up after that. And I remember calling you like a couple weeks later. I was like, you opened up Pandora's box. Men. Like it is raining men, I think were my exact words. Not to make myself sound bad, but I mean, just like left and right. I was like, I need to get a bat. I got to bat these things off. This is crazy. It was just like wild. Like something shifted in me energetically. And it was just like all of a sudden I was open and people could feel that and experience that. And then the natural result of that was I was getting hit on all the time. And still,
yes, that's a good thing.
It never went away.
No. That's the magic. Yeah, I use my magic wand.
Yeah,
absolutely. We eliminate or open up blockages, so to say, to move these women further. But the interesting part is that you said, "Hey, I was blocked or avoidant or all these things." That is actually a nervous system response to keep you safe. It's from a survival approach. After years, we can think, oh, this is just our natural state. This is my personality. This is who I am. No, that's just the programming of whatever you created to navigate life or the relationship. And that needs to be reprogrammed. So we did that, and now it's flowing.
It is.
The energy is flowing.
The faucet has been turned on.
And going back to the grief, grief doesn't necessarily only exist, as you say, when you lose a loved one to death. When you separate, you lose the person, but you also lose your ex families now, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
your family in law, the
Yeah.
friends you had
Yeah.
in common, financial stability,
Mm-hmm.
your home that you felt
Mm-hmm.
safe in, or perhaps not, but it was
Yeah.
a home. So there is grief not only for the person, but the whole situation, and also for yourself, because you were a version of you within that relationship that you got comfortable with.
Yeah.
And that person cannot exist anymore. So you're losing a part of your identity there.
Makes sense.
So, yes, grief in the biggest sense of the
Yeah.
word, of the loss that appears on all levels. And therefore, it's not only rebuilding life, but rebuilding identity and regulating the nervous system.
That makes sense. Okay. So I think we still have enough time. We can dive into this plant medicine conversation a little bit. I feel like we could do a whole episode on this.
Yes.
So we won't take up too much time on it, but you and I both have an interesting like history with plant medicine. And I want to just like touch on
Yeah.
a couple of things, like as kind of a disclaimer, because I think that it's important. I think plant medicine has become so widely used, so accessible, and I'd go as far as to say so overused and overly accessible without enough education around, I don't, not to scare anyone, but the dangers that are inherent in doing plant medicine, and the potential for, you know, spiritual bypassing and bypassing real work. And
Yep.
so I want to touch on that a little bit, and then I want to talk about the benefits, because there are so many incredible benefits as well, and I've experienced both ends of that, being somebody who is so against anything to do with plant medicine or anything to do with drugs my whole life. I grew up in a drug addicted family, and it was just so pervasive in my family, and it caused so much pain and trauma and destruction in my life. I was always anti drugs. Never wanted anything to do with them. I was like the girl at the party, you know, in my 30s, and people are like talking about Molly, and I'm like, oh, who's that? You know, and they'd laugh at me. I'm like, I don't understand.
Is she coming to the
Yeah,
party?
yeah. I was like,
Molly?
oh, is she on her way? Who's that? You know, I didn't, you know, I was so naive to it because I just was like, once I was on my own at 16, I was like, anything to do with drugs, I was just like, I'm leaving the moment that I catch wind of it. And so that kind of set the tone for me. As I start hearing about plant medicine stuff, I was just like, oh, that's just drugs. Like, oh, those people using drugs. And I was very, very against it. And then I came upon a documentary, I think it was called The Reality of Truth. I'll have to double check that, but I think it was like a documentary on YouTube. And it talked a little bit about plant medicine, and it kind of takes people through their journey and the transformation that they had. And I became very curious. And then I found Michael Pollan's work, read some of his books, and just became even more fascinated. And then there's like a docu-series on Netflix, and I watched that, and I just became, and then I was hearing it everywhere, you know, at this time, this is probably like 9 years ago now, but I was just hearing about it everywhere. It was popping up in the podcasts that I listened to and all these things. So I became very curious, and I decided I was going to start exploring down that road. And I ended up, my very first ceremony was a San Pedro ceremony with a girlfriend of mine who was a shaman, and did a private ceremony with San Pedro, and it was a beautiful experience. And I think I waited like a year, and then I hired 2 shamans and did a private ceremony with psilocybin, another beautiful experience. So then I was feeling pretty confident. And I think it took me 2 years after that when I like decided to embark upon ayahuasca for the first time. And that was
And you went to Peru, right?
not the first time. The
Oh,
first
okay.
time I did it here in Vista. And I actually had the first night was a rough night. The second night, my mind was blown in the best possible way, because I couldn't believe that a plant could be so intelligent that it could go into my body. It could discover what I need the first night. And then the second night, it could take me to where I needed to go to heal something that had been pretty, you know, shoved down there. And so it was so powerful. I had such a powerful experience with it. I thought, wow, if that can happen to me in Vista, what's going to happen when I go to Peru? You know, and I, you know, drink ayahuasca from, you know, the Amazon, in the Amazon. And then the place that I went was, again, this is where the disclaimer came in. It's like, you've got to really know where you're going and what the intentions are. I think that it's really been, I don't know, like, I feel like people are using it as a business to make money. And it's that sometimes takes away from the potential healing and the beauty of the experience. And the container wasn't great. They had so many people and it was a little bit out of their control because there were so many people. If it's not an intimate setting, you're exposed to a lot of energy and a lot of different things going on. So I ended up having some pretty rough experiences in Peru, with the last night being a night where I was left alone in a Maloca because the facilitator said they were going to go get me some lime juice to help bring me down. I thought I was dying. I was very scared. It was a really, really terrifying moment for me. And they left and they never came back. The shamans, the facilitators, they left me alone in the Maloca at like 4 in the morning alone. And it was one of the scariest nights of my life. And so all that to say, like, you have to be really careful with who you choose as your facilitators for these kinds of things. And I have come away from that experience with, I don't know that I'll ever go and do plant medicine again, which is unfortunate because I do think it can be a powerful tool.
Yeah.
And the things that I'd like to get out while we're on this topic is I think it's important for people to integrate their experiences. I think people just go, maybe they have magical experience and they want to just keep going back and doing it again and again. And I think that the medicine cannot heal you. And I think that's important to know. No plant is going to heal you. Nothing's going to heal you. You have to heal you. And so it can show you things about yourself. It can shine a light on things if you're willing and open to see them, but you actually have to then go home and make the hard decisions and do the hard thing. I know for me, that last experience, it's like I went in and I thought, okay, I'm in this toxic relationship. I want to get out of it. I can't do it. I'm going to go drink this ayahuasca and it's going to like do it for me. And it didn't do that for me. It showed me what I already knew. And I had to come home and I had to do the hard thing and leaving a dynamic that wasn't right for me. And it was a really, really difficult situation. And so the medicine can't do it for you. Right. And so I think that's going in with that understanding, like, let it show you what you need to see. And then you have to go home and you have to do the work, and people will go there and they'll have these beautiful experiences. They go back to their life, making the same decisions that they were making, living the life the same way that they were living it, that got them to the place where they felt like they needed to go do the medicine, to feel better. And then they do, and it becomes a cycle. I know people in ceremony, they've been like, this is my 40th ayahuasca ceremony. I'm like, I don't think it's working. I don't think it's working for you.
True.
Anyways,
yes,
so I think that's super important. But the work that you do with plant medicine, I think is really powerful work. And I want you to talk about that because you do more microdosing.
Yes.
And I think that's powerful.
Yeah. Microdosing is a big part of how I support the people. More so after I see that their nervous system is pretty regulated. If you have incredible high anxiety, for example, and you then go take some psilocybin mushrooms, it will amplify that. So yeah, it's, so it's very important to learn the right tools so you can regulate your nervous system. And when that is quite balanced out, then microdosing is a great tool to increase focus, calmness, happiness, creativity, really support the process of creating these new neural pathways. Yes, you can create it as well with other modalities, but I feel this is a beautiful hack, so to say, because it lasts many more weeks after your initial dosage, that the brain still picks up on that. The brain keeps working. So microdosing is a safe, disclaimer. We gotta always watch out what we say here. But in my opinion, a safe way, much safer, at least in my opinion again, than the Western medicine, the pharmaceuticals, where many people get actually very codependent or addicted on. And I haven't seen that in my career yet with a psilocybin mushroom that happened. Yes, you can build tolerance. So you want to put yourself on a certain cycle and have your breaks for the body to calm.
Would you say that, like, if maybe somebody's going through something, a hard time, and you deem them as somebody who maybe would be a good fit for microdosing, and you put them on it, the intention is that they're not going to be on it forever, right?
No,
the intention is that they're going to be on it for a time, for a period, and then eventually they're able to manage on their own.
Yeah. And a lot of the clients, they would utilize that for about 6 weeks.
Okay.
5 weeks, and then take a break. Maybe they pick it up again, but I've helped people off smoking daily marijuana, or drinking, or being depressed, or being on pharmaceutical meds for anxiety or depression. So yeah, it's super helpful, so to say. What else did you ask me there? Oh yeah, the integration. Yes. Yeah. So only taking a microdosing capsule will not necessarily on the long run do the work. Right? Your brain doesn't magically change over time. It changes because you take action upon it. So that can mean you go into nature every day for half an hour to walk, or you sit in silence, or you focus mindfully on your breath, or you do some journal exercises or the neural rewiring exercises, really changing the state of how you feel in your body. So that is very important. So I always offer that as a container for doing the coaching sessions together with you going on a protocol, so to say. Now, macro dosing is also very powerful, right?
Yes.
Then people come to me and they go on a deep journey for a day, so to say.
Okay.
So it's a larger doses of psilocybin mushroom and they can dive deep. And that way, in a one session, they can dive into that subconscious mind and really rewire in the moment and release and throw out some very dysfunctional patterns or create some clarity and insights. But again, it's an activation, it's an initiation. You go home and the work will continue. The medicine will continue to work, and you still need to do the work as well.
Yes.
The integration work.
I so appreciate you saying that, because I do find that that's how I feel like you can separate the true facilitators, the true healers from, the false prophets, if you will, because a lot of them out there will be telling you, just take this thing and you'll be healed. It's like 10 years of therapy in one night. And while it is very powerful and it shows you so much because it goes into the subconscious and there's no hiding from yourself in there, you have to come out and you have to integrate and you have to do the work and you have to make the changes necessary. And I think that's the part that, we're missing in that plant medicine world.
But a lot of the clients, they are not interested, funny enough, in that. They want to have this magical experience and they're outsourcing the responsibility to either the facilitator or the mushroom. And they just want it to happen in that day. And then they are willing to put money down for that, but not for the sessions afterwards, where actually the big work, the big shifts are coming in after with the guidance. So that's so interesting to me to see how people respond to that.
Yeah.
It's
so interesting.
Yeah.
I think that just goes to show, that's the intention of the person, going into it. Because if you truly want healing, you've got to be committed to that, what comes after that.
Yes, it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Hand in hand. It's funny, I wanted to share this with everyone. I started my first ceremony with ayahuasca. You know how some people that dabble their feet in, like lighter.
Yeah, like me.
Yes. But I was very unfamiliar 13 years ago with plant medicine. I never heard of it. I never took drugs either. I was a very clean person, so to say. And I remember the father of my kids, when we lived in Puerto Rico, he spoke about it. And he's like, oh, maybe you should go up to the jungle and go into the teepee for the night with this group of people and do this thing.
Sure.
Yeah. It's like, it's very interesting. And I'm like, oh, I want to see the magic of that all. So yes, I lay there on this dirty TP and it was a horrible experience actually. Yes, I didn't read into it. I had no idea what to expect. So
you're very adventurous.
Yes, I was very adventurous. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening to me? But that was not the last time. I kept repeating that throughout the years, together with some other strong psychedelics. And I have to say, yes, know your facilitator. Don't go for too high of a dosage, because I did had a spiritual emergency, so to say, and it took me a while to really get back and grounded and have my pineal glands, not spitting out things on being on steroids. Yeah, so I learned a lot, and then I eventually went into facilitating, and I facilitated ayahuasca retreat weekends and assisted with combo and bufo, DMT, really got to know the whole range of what's out there. But currently in my sessions, if people are open to that, I utilize hape, which is the shamanic snuff, non-psychedelic.
You've done that.
Yeah, we've done that. Yeah, that made you purge so nicely.
It did. I'd done it a handful of times before. I did it in my very first psilocybin experience, and I think I'd done it at some of your women's circles.
Yeah.
And then we did it at a retreat that we did together as well. But that was the first time I'd ever purged from it.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show it's not even necessarily about, it's like what is being called for in that moment, because in that moment I was ready to release something.
Yeah.
And that's what it did. I don't think it makes you naturally purge. I think it's just if you have something that needs to be released, it might facilitate or help assist you in that.
Yeah. And again, the biggest growth happens out of your comfort zone. So if we want to go to a session of a Reiki and lay nice and still and comfortably heal, again, we're outsourcing a bit of that responsibility.
Absolutely. I see that even in breath work, leading the somatic release breath work. I have so many people are like, I don't want to cry, or I don't want to scream, or I don't want to laugh. They don't want to take up space, and they don't want that. And they're just terrified to have that experience. So they kind of like hold back. Because of the fear of what might happen that they don't want to happen. But it might need to happen. Probably more so if you're going in thinking, I don't want that to happen. It's probably exactly what you need. But yeah, I'll watch people hold back. And that's always my goal, is to try to get those people to let go of that control and just let happen what needs to happen. The body is so intelligent when we get out of its way.
But we humans overall are so afraid to feel ourselves, feel our feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. I had that conversation literally the other night with Cora, because we were driving, and anytime this one song comes on, she's like, turn it. This is a sad song. Turn it. I'm like, what's wrong with feeling sad? Why do we label that as bad and happy as good? When it's just all just is, and it's like, oh, it's just like when the clouds come, it's just a rainy day. It's not bad. It's just a rainy day. Oh, it's sunny. Okay. It's just what it is. Our emotions are the same way. They're kind of like the weather, and they change like the weather. And it's okay to have those different expressions of ourselves. And I've said this before on this podcast, so, forgive me if you've heard this before, but I feel like our ability to experience joy and happiness is in direct correlation to our ability to experience our pain and our sadness. Like, absolutely. I think the more you allow yourself to feel the depths of your lows, the more you get to experience the height of your highs. And I think when you stop yourself from feeling the lows, you also mute your highs. And so you don't get the fullness of the joy that you could be experiencing. And then you almost learn to see the sadness as beauty. Like, that's where I'm at when I have a sad thing, when something's moving through, maybe a memory of my dad, or, daughter lost her partner last year, and sometimes that will hit me and I'll feel the emotion of that. And some people feel that and they're like, oh, I don't want to feel bad, like quickly change the song, or quickly go distract myself, turn on, get away from this feeling. But instead, I like to go into it and allow it to come up and out. And I always say, feel it fully. Because otherwise, I feel like when you don't feel it fully, it just keeps trying to come up and keeps trying to come up. Whereas if you just let it feel it fully, that's a new word. If you let yourself feel it fully, I feel like it's not as pervasive. It doesn't try to poke through as often. But when it does, then you start to feel that as like, there's that part of me again.
These emotions, they are entities. They want to be fully seen, and you want to make peace with that, become friends with that. But the funny thing is that this, what you're explaining, is actually about emotional regulation. And did we ever learn that in school? No, like, you only learn that when you have such a growth mindset and you are in a spiritual community, or into the books. But other than that, we don't learn that. And that's what makes people feel very fearful for feeling, because it overcomes them. They become the feeling. They identify themselves with the feeling. But if you learn to recognize that it's a wave that overcomes you, and you feel it, you breathe into it, you recognize it. Oh, yes, okay, you're allowed here. I feel you here in my body. Okay, it's tense there, it's fluttering. Okay, I breathe. Then already it will soften, and it will slowly leave again, like the wave comes and goes. There is a technique that I teach my clients in where they learn that they are not the emotion. You learn to sit back in your own body and look at the emotion, that it's separate from you.
The seat of awareness.
The seat of awareness. You are not your feet.
Yes.
But you have feet.
You do. I love that.
Yes. And so that's the same with emotions. And I believe that's why people are afraid of feeling. And then they go first into coping, then into regulating. Okay, that's good. But then when you're regulated, then you can perhaps rebuild whatever needs to be rebuilt.
Absolutely. Imagine what kind of a world we would live in if we taught emotional regulation to children in school.
Oh, they should.
Right?
Yeah, all the schools that hear this, yep.
Oh my gosh. Imagine what kind of a world it would be. Certainly a less violent one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, also learning that changing the way we feel now, everyone treats it like an external job. I was having this conversation with a girlfriend the other day. She was going through a breakup, and she was feeling some kind of way about it. And she was wanting to reach for her ex-partner to fix the way she was feeling. And not saying that that's the right or wrong decision. That's dependent upon their situation. But in that moment, it's like, can you be with that discomfort? Can you be with that feeling without trying to reach externally to fix it? For some people, they're reaching for alcohol, or they're reaching for, addictions, or they're reaching for, things that may not be good for them because they want to fix the way they feel instead of just going within and being with the way that they feel. Like you said, every part of you wants to be seen. It wants to be felt. It wants to be known and loved.
Yes, but you know where that comes from her, most likely. That is her pattern, her survival mechanism from the nervous system to say, I feel familiar with that person and therefore it's safe. Her system is out of whack. So she's looking to regulate that by going back to what's familiar.
Wow.
And that's a very strong pattern. Yes, let that sink in.
Yeah, I feel that.
And that's where the work needs to be done. So you don't go back to the same situations, the same people, just because the brain nervous system doesn't recognize what is actual safe or what is just familiar. And that's awareness that needs to increase.
I love that.
And then you won't run back anymore to these people. You know how to fill your own cup.
Regulate from within instead of from without, reaching for that thing outside of you externally. I love that. I hate to end this conversation because it's such a good one, but we are at that time. So how does everyone listening to this podcast get in touch with you? How do they find you if they want to book a session with you or learn more about the work that you do or come to one of your workshops or any of the amazing things that you do? You also lead some salsa dancing. You do all kinds of amazing things. How do they find you?
Yeah. Instagram is called Cinderella Divine Light. And my website is divinelightcollective.com. And I think these are the two easiest ways to connect with me. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much for finally coming onto the podcast. And I think we're going to have to do a follow-up episode at some point as well, because this was a great conversation and cut a little too short. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you could leave a review so we can reach more people. I might even share your review on future episodes. If you go to the link in the show notes, you can find and sign up for our newsletter so that you're notified when a new episode comes out. You can support this show by purchasing anything from the Choice Juicery online shop at choicejuicery.com. Or, of course, if you're lucky enough to live in San Diego, you can visit any of our 7 locations here in San Diego and Orange County. And please feel free to connect with me on social media at Nastasha McKeon. That's NASTASHAMCKEON. Don't forget that extra S. Or you can connect with us at the Choice Juicery Instagram at Choice Juicery. Thanks again for listening in.